Since BlueCo have taken over Chelsea in 2022, we have made over 60 signings. We have signed over 60 players, and that is not looking to slow down too much anytime soon. So before this summer window inevitably kicks off and we start seeing signings come in from all over the place, I decided that we are going to rank every single BlueCo signing so far. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And man, I mean everything today. I'm dreading this a little bit, I'm not going to lie. It's very hot, but we're going to rank every single BlueCo signing. So the categories I have come up with in which to rank these signings are as follows. Flop, for players that just did not do well. Future, for if a player we've bought could come good. Asset, if a player that was brought in was to raise value and sell him on. Squad means we bought a player that has just gone on to be a good squad player. And baller is the ones that are making up our core first team so far. So look, I've tried really hard to get every single signing in, and like I say, it's just over 60. It's absolutely wild. If I have missed one, let me know in the comments and then we can talk about them there. But for now, let's get into this gigantic list. And we start off with Raheem Sterling, signed from Manchester City for £47.5 million in 2022. One of Todd Boehly's first statement signings, right when, we're going to get into them all, but there was a couple of signings that were brought in for the here, for the now, that had experience. I was really excited about Raheem Sterling. He was so good at Manchester City, but ultimately the issue was the Sterling we got at Chelsea was not the one that City had. Like, at City, he was a real piece in a machine, like a key cog in a machine. He arrived late, he scored goals in that Pep Guardiola system. At Chelsea, we gave him a lot more freedom, but unfortunately, he just didn't kick on. He had a reasonably good first season. I think it was like 9 goals, 8 assists, something like that. Pretty good GA. Thought, maybe it was going to be okay, but as we know, or categorically, we all know now about Raheem Sterling, it did not work out the way that any of us wanted. He went on loan to Arsenal. He ended up in the bomb squad. We ended up terminating his contract. So for all of that rigmarole, I'm going to have to label him as a flop. Moving on to Kalidou Koulibaly, who was signed for £33 million from Napoli, also in 2022. Like Raheem Sterling, on absolutely massive wages, but didn't even have a good first season. Like, it was evident almost as soon as Kalidou Koulibaly started getting on the pitch and kicking a ball, it just wasn't going to work out. We were really lucky that the summer after we bought him, Al Nassr came in. I think it was Al Nassr, but a Saudi Arabian club came in and paid a hefty fee for him. So we were lucky to get him off the books pretty quickly, but ultimately also going to be labelled as a flop. Marc Cucurella was brought in for £62 million from Brighton in 2022. And to be honest, I've just got to say baller. Like, I know he bookended his whole Chelsea career with, bad patches of form, but he wasn't very good when we brought him in. There was some interest from Manchester United about buying him, but ultimately he absolutely kicked on under Pochettino when he started getting used as that inverted fullback, and the rest is kind of history, really. He is one of the many players that tailed off towards the end of last season with Liam Rosinia kind of stinking out the gaff, but I don't really hold that against him because so many players went through the same thing. But I think it would be disingenuous to say that Marc Cucurella is anything other than a baller, because personally I'd love to have kept him. Wesley Fofana, £70 million from Leicester in 2022. His Chelsea career thus far has been largely marred by injuries. So I'm going to be quite generous to the majority of players who have had their careers marred by injuries. But the truth of the fact is, Wesley Fofana has been back in the squad playing football for quite a long time now. Back earlier this season when we still had Maresca, he was starting to look like he was making up a really good partnership with Trevor Chalobah. They got like 8 clean sheets in a row. But we have just seen so many horror showings from Wesley Fofana, and for the price we bought him for, the fact that he's barely been able to get onto the pitch, I'm going to label him as a flop. Carney Chukwuemeka, that West Ham goal, if you know, you know. He was a young player we bought for £20 million from Aston Villa in 2022. Injuries were definitely a problem for him as well. When he came, it was just after he scored that magnificent goal against West Ham. That's when his injury trouble started. We ended up loaning him out to Borussia Dortmund, and ultimately he was sold to Borussia Dortmund as well for a tidy profit. So because of that, although I really liked him, I'm going to have to label him as an asset. Cesare Casadei, bought from Inter Milan, I think it was, for £12.6 million. Not a lot to say. He threatened to break into the first team a few times, went on a few loans, I think, as well, but never really got that close to it. Unfortunately, we sold him on to Torino for a profit, so another player that we're going to have to label as an asset. Gargas Lanina, one of the first goalkeepers brought under BlueCo. I think we got him from Chicago and loaned him back at the time, and kind of ever since then. I don't know if he's been anywhere else, but he maybe injuries has been... Honestly, there's so many players, it's so difficult to keep up to date with all of them, and if I did all of the research on every single player in this list, I'd never have got it finished. So Gargas Lanina looks like he's going to be on his way out this summer. We bought him for 8 million in 2022, which for a young untested keeper is still quite a lot of money, so I'm going to have to label him as a flop. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, we bought from Barcelona, and it looked like a good idea. He was bought for Thomas Tuchel, right? Because Thomas Tuchel was obviously still here at the beginning of the BlueCo era. And he looked quite good under Thomas Tuchel, scored a couple of goals at the beginning, and then almost as soon as Thomas Tuchel went out, Graham Potter came in, he just completely tailed off. We ended up selling him to, I think again it was another Saudi Arabian club. He's since then found his way to Marseille for 10.3 million. For the very small amount of output we got from him, I'm going to have to label him as a flop. Benoit Badiashile, Benoit Badiashile, £35 million from Monaco in the January of 2023, so halfway through that season. He looked so good for his first, about 8 games? I think it was like something like that, 8 games. He looked like an absolute baller, and then had a big injury, and ever since then has just failed to kick on. Unfortunately, with Benoit Badiashile, his story of the last few seasons has been he comes in and spits and spots as and when he can. 1 in 5 or 6 performances he plays quite well. In memory, he played really well against Liverpool, for instance, but for the most part he's been really underwhelming. Looks like we're going to sell him this summer, so another one I'm going to label as a flop. Denis Zakaria, which is an unusual one. Getting players on loan at Chelsea has always been a weird phenomenon. In the Abramovich era, a lot of time we did it with strikers. I can remember the likes of Alexandre Pato and Gonzalo Higuain, Radamel Falcao. Like we did that. We loaned a lot of experienced strikers in, and it never really seemed to work out. Denis Zakaria was brought in to fill a gap in the midfield for the rest of the season. He scored 1 goal, didn't make a huge amount of appearances, didn't look terrible, but didn't look particularly good by any stretch. So again, gonna have to label him as a flop. David Datro Fofana, the first striker we bought after BlueCo announced they were changing the transfer direction in order to buy young superstars and turn them into either profit or first team players. Unfortunately for us and for David Datro Fofana, he has turned into neither. We bought him for 10 million in the January of 2023. He's been on a load of loan moves, failed loan move at Burnley, didn't do particularly well, as most recently he went to a second-tier Turkish team, Faith Karagamuk, was it? I can't remember, but a second-tier Turkish team. Struggling to get rid of him. We're looking to he's like the last current remaining member of the bomb squad, going to have to be labelled a flop. Andre Santos, 10.2 million in 2023. Now, as much as I would like to have said squad, because that's kind of where we were, based on the fact that we've just sold him to Man United for £50 million, it's going to have to be asset, isn't it? I know a lot of Chelsea fans are really disappointed about Andre Santos not being given more of an opportunity, but when you think about it, that 10.2 million, so really conflicting as well, a lot more than a lot of the other players on this list. There's been different amounts of money flying around. I've seen 18 million was quite a common one initially, but the most recent figure coming out since we've sold him seems to be 10.2 million. Amortized, he's basically worth 2-3 million, something like that. So that 50 million is almost complete pure profit, which 100% labels Andre Santos as an asset. João Felix, what a weird story it's been with João Felix. BlueCo obviously really like João Felix, right? And you know what? I really like João Felix. He just never kicked on. We got him on a loan in 2023, and then we bought him for 42 million in 2024. Again, I guess flop, really, more so than asset. I know we made a little bit of profit when we sold into Al Nassr, because we nearly looked at losing money on him, I think, because Benfica were the only team that were in for him at the time, and out of nowhere Al Nassr came in and bought him off of us. I really like João Felix. I do still think it was short-sighted to sell him when you consider that we got Facundo Buonanotte on loan from Brighton to fill that same position as a backup, but he'd obviously been at AC Milan for the back half of the last season before that as well, so evidently just wasn't happy at the club anymore. So flop, I guess, unfortunately. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not looking good for the first couple of years, is it? Mikhailo Mudrik's up next. 62. So anytime I put plus, by the way, it's add-ons, and we don't know how much the add-ons have amounted to essentially. Mikhailo Mudryk was bought for £62 million in the January of 2023. We snipped him away from Arsenal, who'd been negotiating with him for quite a long time. He looked like a really exciting player. He'd been touted as a future Ballon d'Or winner because of his innate natural ability, which we only really saw once in a Chelsea shirt in that brief cameo he made against Liverpool that season. But apart from that, we just never really saw anything out of him. Obviously, you know, he kind of got worse and worse, and then all of a sudden he started getting pretty stacked and scoring goals in the Conference League, and then unfortunately was hit with a doping ban. So look, the future of Mykhailo Mudryk is, you know, I guess we will terminate the contract at some point. I don't know if we're allowed to do it yet while all of this is going on, but just has to be seen as a flop. Noni Madueke, really interesting one. Ultimately, good value. 29 million from Feyenoord, was it? It was a Dutch team. It was definitely a Dutch team. In 2023, he became a first-team regular. He was touted as being the perfect Maresca player because Maresca likes his wingers to stay really wide, and you know that was a big part of Noni Madueke's game. Cut a really frustrating figure quite a lot of the time, didn't he? And again, just the fact that, you know, if he was still here, I'd probably consider him squad because I wouldn't ever have called him an absolute baller. You know, the memorable moments were like the hat-trick against Wolves after putting out what he did on social media about them. Noni Madueke definitely had moments, but not enough of them to have been considered, you know, like well, anything more than a squad player, really. But bearing in mind, obviously, we sold him to Arsenal for a really hefty profit. He's going to have to be considered as an asset. Malo Gusto. I thought we bought Malo Gusto for £20 million, but upon research, the figure I'm seeing is £26 million. We got him from Lyon. He's played a lot in the first team. We're looking at like this could very quickly turn into asset. If we get the money that we're talking about for Malo Gusto, then 100% comes asset. But quite comfortably, I can label Malo Gusto as a decent squad player at the moment. I don't want to see him in the first team, but I'm happy to have him as a backup. You know, I'd always rather see Reece James there, or even at the moment, the likes of Marco Palestra, even though I've never seen him on the pitch, outside of a few clips of him playing at Cagliari. Ultimately, he looks like he's going to offer us a lot more attacking threat from that right side than Malo Gusto did, and Malo Gusto may well be on his way to Man City. We'll have to see what happens with that, but ultimately, for the money we bought him from, for what we're going to get out of him, I would label him as a good squad player as of right now. Enzo Fernandez, the first of the two £100 million midfielders that we bought. This is a really tough one because the conversation around Enzo Fernandez is just split the fan base. I, in particular, I'm kind of indifferent to if he stays or goes. Like, I'd be happy to keep him because of his obvious qualities, but at the same time, if he goes, like, I would rather see something in our deeper midfield in particular. As far as what to label him as, he doesn't really fit into any of these for me personally, but, you know, he's too good to be a squad player, isn't he? So I'm going to have to label him as a baller just because that ability to arrive late in the box, to galvanise the team and the fans as and when he has, are his good qualities. The bad qualities largely roll off of the pitch, and the fact that from a deep lying midfield position maybe doesn't connect the play together so much because he's always looking to get forward and score goals. But at the same time, I think it's kind of disingenuous based on the criteria that I've chosen to label him as anything other than a baller. Jimmy J Morgan is a player that I'd only heard about recently when we sold him to West Brom, like in the last month or so. We bought him for £3 million in 2023, never made the pitch for Chelsea, don't know about much his development or loan moves, and like I say, we've just sold him to West Brom, so with that in mind, I guess we have to label him as an asset. Kendry Paez was bought for £17 million in 2023, in and around the same time we bought Esteval Willian, and was touted as being the same level as talent. At the moment, I'm probably going to have to say future because look, it's kind of hovering between future and flop right now because we bought him and he looked like a real baller, or at least future 100%. He looked like he could develop into something really good, but he went to a loan on Strasbourg where he didn't really manage to make many appearances and only had a few good performances when he did. Then he got recalled and sent to a loan on at River Plate in Argentina, which he's just had cancelled because of his attitude. So, look, I'm not calling him a flop yet because he's still so young. He's like 18, 19 years old. Do you know what I mean? He's literally still so young. It's ridiculous. So I'm still going to say future for the time being. Christopher Nkunku. Difficult one. £52 million from Red Bull Leipzig in 2023. We were all so excited about Christopher Nkunku. He looked amazing in that pre-season, then got that massive injury, which was such a shame. But then Cole Palmer got bought, and the rest is kind of history. That was the Pochettino season where Cole Palmer break out, and we all kind of, you know, didn't worry so much about Christopher Nkunku. I guess, I mean, squad, I would say, like, he was a good squad player. The thing about Christopher Nkunku, he was a type of player that we bought a lot of times, a left forward who really flourished in that one particular position, but we tried him on left wing, we tried him in the centre of attack, we tried him up top, and although he kind of like Enzo Fernandez, like he kind of get you a goal, regardless of whether he contributed to the rest of the game really well. We'd kind of definitely would get you a goal. We saw that time and time again. Really, really good finisher. I wouldn't call him so much of an asset because he was bought to be a first-team player and we didn't make that much money on him, so I'm probably going to say he was a squad player. Nicholas Jackson, £32 million from Villarreal in 2023. He'd recently been converted from a left winger to a striker. We bought him and he was our solitary striker for 2 years until he fell out with Maresca and went on loan to Bayern Munich. Squad, I'm going to say, obviously doesn't necessarily look like we're going to sell him yet. Xabi Alonso wants to take a look at him, albeit he had really good performances for us. There were a lot of issues like missing chances, a little bit of petulance, going missing quite a lot in games and stuff as well, but ultimately I would say good squad player. Diego Moreira. We got him on a free from Benfica in 2023 and he got a couple of opportunities in the pre-season under Pochettino, but didn't really kick on, and we ended up selling him to Strasbourg for, I think it was like 2-3 million, like really, really cheap price. But ultimately, at the moment, you'd have to say asset, but there just feels like something about Diego Moreira where there might be an opportunity for him to come back to the club one day. He's gone on to do really well, and he's developed into a really good player at Strasbourg, so I'll call him an asset for now because we got him on a free, sold him for 200-300 times profit, whatever you want to call it, but obviously didn't break into the Chelsea first team, albeit I do think there's an opportunity for him there in the future. Ishe Samuel-Smith, a left back we bought for 4 million in 2023, hasn't really gotten close to the first team yet and is playing with the development squad for the time being. He got a loan to Strasbourg, but we recalled him when we sold Ben Chilwell to them because they didn't need all those left backs. So at the moment, I'm going to say future. Looks like there's a good player there. Looks like a decent left back, but still got a lot of developing to do. Hopefully he can get a loan this season. Leslie Ugochukwu is going to have to be labelled as an asset, although he did look like there was potential there, right? And if you think he's been fit at the end of the day, like obviously we bought him, I think we loaned him to Southampton and then Burnley bought him, and I think someone else is in for him now. Can't remember, but there's another team that's looking at getting him this season. He developed quite well. He was a good player at Southampton. He had obviously a very difficult season at Burnley in the Premier League with them getting relegated, but he's good enough to be looking at a next move. So we did spend quite a lot of money on him though, to be completely honest. I guess we'd have to say asset, but I don't think we actually made that much profit on him. Axel Disasi, the other Monaco boy, we bought for £39 million in the summer of 2023. It's a flop, isn't it? It's a flop. Just calamitous for us really, albeit he's looked quite good on his loans at Aston Villa and West Ham. He was in the bomb squad for a long time last season, just never managed to kick on. Loads of money spent on him. He's going to be a loss, unfortunately. I would have thought, anyway, depends on how much we sell him for, if we ever manage to sell him, but I'm going to have to label Axel Disasi as a flop. Robert Sanchez. This one is hard, man. This one is hard. Robert Sanchez has pulled me all around emotionally for the last few years. 25 million from Brighton in the summer of 2023 at the beginning of that season. He's been our first team goalkeeper for the last 3 seasons, but my issue with him is that he's never managed to not be dropped. He's been dropped by 3 different managers in 3 different seasons, and now obviously we're looking at a battle between him and Mike Penders essentially to who gets the goalkeeper crown or the Czech helmet as it might be. Squad, I guess. Squad, I'm not going to say he's a flop because he has been really good in spits and spats. Too old to be a future player. We haven't sold him on yet, so he can't be an asset, and he's definitely not a baller, so I guess squad is the only way to go. David Washington, £17 million in 2023, and he's still playing with the development squad. I mean, getting pretty close to flop, but it's future, I guess. I think he needs to be he's on the loan list at the moment and he's not even being sold, so supposedly there is still some potential that is seen in him. I think he's like nearly 20 or 19, 20, getting not necessarily just a really young kid anymore, but still has lots of potential. Made a couple of appearances for Chelsea but never set the world alight. So yeah, future is going to have to be future. Angelo Gabriel, we bought so many of these young South American players, didn't we? 13 million, which again for an unknown is quite a lot of money in 2023. Made a couple of appearances for the first team but got sold on pretty quickly, so I guess you'd have to say it was an asset. Moise Caicedo, 100+ million with add-ons in 2023. Baller. Absolute baller, easily one of the best players in our team at the moment. Still has some developing to do. He gets lots of cards and has issues and stuff, yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, every single permutation of every single first team you could think of since he's been here has had him in it. Although he took a little while to build up, he's had some absolutely phenomenal performances and is definitely going to be key to the squad going forward, so baller. Romeo Lavia, the glass man, £60 million from Southampton, and we pipped Liverpool to him because he'd been talking with Liverpool for quite a long time, and then they tried to go in for Moise Caicedo, and then we were like, not only are we going to get Moise Caicedo, we're going to have Lavia too. Lavia is a good player, so I'm not going to label him as a flop, purely because I said earlier I'll be generally quite generous with players that have had lots of injury troubles, because whenever he's been on the pitch, he's looked great. He's not going to be an asset, because if we sold him, we'd lose money on him at the moment. I guess he's kind of too young to be considered future talent, so at the moment I'll label him as a squad player. Jordi Petrovic, the goalkeeper that could have been. Sorry, it's so hot in my office. It's torture already. Jordi Petrovic, £14 million from the MLS in 2023, burst into our first team when one of the times that Robert Sanchez got dropped, that was in the Pochettino season, looked like a really good player, wanted guaranteed minutes at the beginning of the next season, was told he was going to have to fight for a spot with Robert Sanchez, was sold to Bournemouth for £25 million, something like that. So I was really gutted to see him go. Obviously, Bournemouth have done really well getting into Europe last season. I'm going to have to call him an asset. Cole Palmer, £40 million in 2023, albeit his last few seasons have been marred by injury. He's just a baller, isn't he? I'm sure the player is still there. Like, I've heard a few people say, like, oh, is he the next Dele Alli? And I desperately hope not. But what we've seen from Cole Palmer, in a bad season, he's still getting 10 goals. Do you know what I mean? And under Maresca's first season, he's still got 20 plus GA. In his first season, he was absolutely phenomenal. One of the best players in our squad easily, and on his day, one of the best in the world. So Cole Palmer is a baller. Tosin Adarabioyo, and it is Adarabioyo. A couple of you have questioned me about this in my comments when I say it. It's not Adarabioyo, because it's not how it's spelled. It's Adarabioyo. So if you're watching this, that's how you say his name. Got him on a free in 2024. Uncle Tosin, flop, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, albeit he had a good couple of good performances. He's never consistently been there. He's always been like, oh, I guess we have to choose Tosin. You know, it's always the best of a bad bunch, but still part of the bad bunch. Wouldn't call him a squad player, really, because I don't love seeing him on the pitch, so I'm going to have to call him a flop. Omari Kellyman, this one's easy. I think it's a flop, largely because of the money. He was part of, essentially, the Ian Maatsen deal to Aston Villa. We sold Ian Maatsen to Aston Villa for like 35 million quid, and then we bought Omari Kellyman for £20 million. He's done quite well in League One at 20 years old for 20 million quid. Do we even call him a future asset at this point? Because 20 million quid for a League One player is wild, absolutely wild. So unfortunately, with all good conscience, I can't call him a future player based on, I just think he's a flop in terms of the money that we spent on him, and I don't think we're ever expecting him to fight into the first team. Mark Gue, bought from Barcelona for £5 million in 2024. I think we're going to have to call him an asset at the end of the day. Like, I would love to say he's a squad player, but he just never really gets enough opportunity, does he? But the fact that we bought him for so cheap, again, he's essentially going to be a pure profit sale. You know, if he goes, it's interesting because I just expect him, I'm saying this because I expect him to be sold. There is a chance he could be loaned out, and I kind of hope he is. But for, you know, you got to bear in mind the players that we're selling at the moment. Like, we sold Andre Santos for 50 million. And Mark Gue is nowhere as near as, you know, close to the first team as Andre Santos is. So, and, you know, yeah, I guess it's an asset for me because I think we're going to make decent money off of him. Caleb Wiley, bought from Atlanta United for 8.5 million in 2024. Future at the moment, I think. His loan at Watford was marred by injury. He's not really managed to kick on yet. Looks like there could be a good left back in there, but he hasn't really had enough consistent game time. So yeah, I'll say future. Renato Vega, bought for 12 million from FC Basel in 2024, was with us for 6 months. Threw his toys out of the pram and went on loan to Juventus for the rest of that season because he wanted to be a centre-back as well. It's still crazy to me that we sold him after the Levi Colwill injury. Man said he wants to be a centre-back. He's left-footed and good with his feet. But for whatever reason, Enzo Maresca didn't really seem to like him. So we ended up selling him to Villarreal, and I think it was for like 25, 30 mil. So asset has to be asset. Jadon Sancho, we got on loan for a 5 million loan fee in 2024. Obviously, you know, a squad, really, because he was just brought... He had a okay season. He wasn't nearly as bad as the likes of Mykhailo Mudryk or even Jamie Gittins, you know, so far for that point. He got a reasonable amount of goals, couple of assists, was in the first team quite a lot for that season. We didn't make the loan permanent, even though we had the option to. So, yeah, £5 million loan fee, squad player. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, bought for £30 million from a just newly promoted Leicester, when we also took Enzo Maresca from them at the beginning of that season. Flop for me, really. We didn't make a huge amount of profit on him when we sold him to Everton. He didn't really threaten to get into the first team too much. He got most of his minutes in the Conference League, playing on like right wing and stuff as well. Do you know what I mean? It was really a case of like, we need a utility guy to put in a certain spot, and that's kind of what Maresca did with him. Albeit Maresca got such a good tune out of him in the Championship, he evidently wasn't ready to make that jump just then, but he has gone on to play quite well at Everton, so fair play to him for that. But as far as being a Chelsea player goes, I'm going to call him a flop. Philip Jorgensen, £20 million. Was it Villarreal as well? Can't remember. It was a Spanish team in 2024, bought to be the backup goalkeeper, which is a terrible idea because he was a really young player. Flop. 8 goals against PSG. Never threatened to break into the only reason he ever got into the first team wasn't because he was looking better than Sanchez. It's because Sanchez was looking bad and he was the only other option. So it wasn't really like Jordi Petrovic, where we've got this guy waiting in the wings and he looks like he can do a good job. It's kind of the opposite of that, where it's like Sanchez is just being bad and this kid is here and is a little bit better with his feet, so let's give him a crack. But looks like we're going to sell him this summer and I'm going to call him a flop. Aaron Anselmino, £15 million, Argentinian team. Was it Boca Juniors? I think it was Boca Juniors in 2024. Had a really good loan spell at Borussia Dortmund when he was able to play because he's been injured quite a lot. Was withdrawn halfway through that season, sent on loan to Strasbourg, and then he got injured again and barely played. Going to call him future. 21 years old at the moment. Definitely still potential there, but we're not looking at selling him just yet, I don't think. He has been he's kind of like Romeo Lavia. When he plays, he's really good, but he spent a lot of time injured. So for that, I'm going to call him future. Mike Penders, £17 million in 2024 from Genk in Belgium. Had a phenomenal loan at Strasbourg last season. Is coming in to challenge Robert Sanchez for the gloves this season. I'm going to call him future, because we haven't seen him yet. Do you know what I mean? We just haven't seen him. So I think what I'm hoping is this very quickly turns into baller. I think he's going to be better than Robert Sanchez, and I think he's going to win that battle. But because we haven't seen him in the Premier League yet, and he's only 20 years old, I'm going to call him future. Pedro Neto bought for £54 million in 2024 from Wolves. Squad player, I think, kind of absolutely typified squad player. He's never had an unbelievable season. He's been good in spits and spats, can score a hat-trick sometimes when you play him in a certain position or he's having a good day, but also can flatter to deceive and be a frustrating figure to watch when he's, failing to take on his man, recycling the ball back to the midfield or the fullbacks and, just not really being a brave enough player. So, yeah, squad player for me. Esteval Willian, £29 million plus add-ons in 2024. From Palmeiras, obviously played against us in the Club World Cup. I'm just gonna call him a baller. I think that for the most part, when he took to the pitch for us last season, despite being 18 years old, almost always looked like one of the better players on the pitch. I expect him to kick on. I think we've got a better manager now. We're going to have a better squad this season than we did last season as well. And yeah, Esteval Willian, for me, is already a baller compared to a lot of the players we've got in the squad right now. Mamadou Sarr, we bought from Strasbourg for £12 million and loaned him back to Strasbourg. He made a couple of features in the Club World Cup. Played really well for Strasbourg, developed really well under Liam Rossigna. 20 years old, is he? 21 years old at the moment. I'll call him a future still because we don't really know what's going to happen with him. Apparently they want to get him a Premier League loan so that, we need to see if he can play in the Premier League. There's definitely a good player in there, at least in European football, because he did do really, really well in France. Also, he played really well for Senegal in the AFCON Cup. So yeah, for now, I'm going to call him future. Matisse Amougou, we bought from Lille, I think. 12.5 million in 2025. He made a couple of appearances in the Conference League and then we sold him to Strasbourg for not very much money. So asset, I guess, really. Dario Esugo, we bought for 18 million in 2025 from, I think it was the January of 2025, from Sporting Lisbon at the same time that we've got Giovanni Kenda. Future, I'm going to say, because obviously he's been injured most of this season. He's made a good couple of appearances. I don't expect to see him go anywhere this season, though, because he's the kind of closest we've got to Moises Caicedo in terms of midfield depth and backups. I do think he looks like a good player. I hope he kicks on this season, and yeah, I'm going to call him future. Giovanni Kenda, who has finally just joined up with the squad. We bought him at the same time that we got Dario Esugo, but he spent the next season and a half on loan. Not on loan. We just didn't make the move permanent. We've only just registered it, but we'd already agreed the price, basically. Future has to be said at the moment, but I'm not going to lie to you. He's already performed well in the Champions League. He was a really important figure for Sporting Lisbon in the last couple of years, despite only being 18, 19 now. But I'm really excited to see what he can do this season. But at the moment, I'm going to call him future. This one is, look, this is a crazy thing about this list, right? Is I put this list together, and this is the first. I kind of knew about everyone else a little bit. This guy completely missed it. Dena Evangelista, bought him from Corinthians for £12 million in 2025. Brazilian left back, really young. Going to have to say future because I just don't know that much about him. Liam Delap for £30 million at the beginning of the 25-26 season. 2 goals in 41 games. It's just a flop, man, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's just a flop. As much as, you know, I do believe that there could be a Premier League striker in there, I don't think it's for Chelsea. So, yeah, for me so far, it's a flop. João Pedro, £60 million. Baller. Absolutely phenomenal. A bit of a gamble. I don't know whether it was luck or whether there's sometimes BlueCo actually, their analytics do quite well. He scored 10 goals for Brighton the season before we bought him, only 5 of which were from open play, but he's got like 28 GA for us this season. Kind of bookended it, went a bit quiet in the middle of the season, but ultimately untouchable. We fought off Barcelona for him, who are really interested in him, and he's going to be a big part of our squad this season. Jamie Gittins, £52 million from Dortmund. Oh man, I won't say flop. I'm going to say future because I just think that he has looked good a couple of times, but injury has been a big problem for him. He actually started to look quite good when Liam Rosenior came in, kind of the same way João Pedro did, but he got injured really quickly and has just been out. Now he's back training with the squad, so we're going to see a little bit more of him. It's easy to forget about him, to be completely honest, because he was kind of woeful under Enzo Maresca. Got a couple of assists in that, but never consistently look good. I'm not going to label him a flop. I'm going to label him a future, but if he doesn't kick on soon, that could turn into flop just because of the price. Yoro Hato, £37 million in 2025. Really respect Yoro Hato because barely played at all under Enzo Maresca and then got loads of opportunities because of issues with squad depth. He's a left back really, but he spent a lot of time playing at left centre back. So he's a versatile player. He's still very young, only I think maybe 20 years old now. Squad. I was just about to call him a baller. We haven't seen enough of him yet in order to see that, but I do think he will turn into a baller this season. Facundo Buonanotte, I got on loan 2025. Spent half the season with us. Flop, I guess. A couple of good appearances. Scored a goal against Lincoln, was it? We ended the loan in January. He didn't threaten getting into the first team apart from rotational options. So yeah, flop. Alejandro Garnacho, £40 million from Manchester United at the beginning of last season. All of the news at the moment is Alejandro Garnacho is up for being sold, and he is also distancing himself from Chelsea. Apparently, is the words that have come from some of the reporters. He didn't have a terrible season. He just looked really frustrating sometimes on the pitch. But if we sell him this season after one season for buying him for 40 mil and we don't make a huge amount of profit on him, we can't call him an asset, so I guess it's going to have to be a flop. Dastan Satpayev, bought for £4 million in 2025, joining up with Xabi Alonso's pre-season squad because he will have just turned 18. Absolutely smashing it out in Kazakhstan, I think it is, like playing really, really well out there for Kairat. But we have to call him a future because he's so young, he's probably going to go out and get another loan, but there looks like there's a real talent there. Matisse Eboué, don't know how much we got him for. I'm not even sure of his position, to be completely honest. He was just on the list. Looks like a defender. Future, going to have to be because I don't know much about him, which is also the same with Yissa Alao. Sheffield Wednesday, we bought him for an undisclosed fee in 2025. Another one for the future. Emmanuel Omega, we announced at the beginning of last season, and he's just joined up with the squad. Again, another undisclosed amount of money, so not sure exactly how much it's going to be just yet. It's a difficult one because these last few are going to get hard because it's players that we've just bought. We don't really know what's going on with them. We haven't seen him at Chelsea yet. I'm going to have to call him future. Valentin Barco, very much the same as Emmanuel Omega. We've had a here we go, but Chelsea haven't announced the signing of him yet, largely probably because he's at the World Cup. I do understand that, but we did it like 2 months ago, and we announced Emmanuel Omega after we signed him at the beginning of the season. So I do find that a bit weird. I think that he's going to be squad, and I feel more confident about that than I do about Emmanuel Omega. So I'm actually going to label Valentin Barco as a squad player. And coming up to the only signing that we've made so far this season in Marco Palestra, £50 million from Atalanta after his last season at Cagliari, where he won Defender of the Season at Serie A and was the most fouled player in that league. Xabi Alonso called him up himself to tell him what he thought his plans for him for the season. Really, really exciting young player. I'll call him a squad player right now as well, but I do think he's going to get straight into the first team. And guys, that is it. That is 61 players. 61 players. Honestly, I rattled through these as quickly as I could because I didn't want the video to be too long. But, mate, there's a lot of flops and assets in there, man, isn't there, to be completely honest? There's really only a couple of ballers. So the conversion rate for BlueCo so far isn't very good. Hopefully that's about to turn around because there's the Xabi Alonso effect. You know, there's the idea that we're going to go in for more kind of experienced signings now, and some of those younger signings that we've got have got a few more years under their belt and are a little bit more Premier League ready. So guys, let me know what you think about this list. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've just realised how sweaty I am. I am pouring in this room, man. I'm absolutely pouring. Right, I better stop this video. Guys, thanks very much for sticking around until the end. If you did, let me know if you think these guys are flops, future asset, squad players or ballers in the comments. I'll catch up with you all really soon. Take it easy. Peace.